I'm Jason Graefe, Corporate Vice President of Digital Natives and AI Model Companies. Today, I'm really excited to be joined with Jordi Romero. He's the CEO and founder of Factorial. Jordi's built one of Europe's fastest growing AI-powered platforms for HR, IT, finance, and operations. He brings a perspective of a technical founder who's navigated hyperscalers. He's scaled across more than 90 countries and learned how to move really quickly inside ecosystems. And so, Jordi, thanks for being here today.
Thank you so much, Jason.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit more how you came up with the idea and what gap did you see in the marketplace that you thought you'd wanted to go fill, and why AI and the timing that this would be the right solution?
Yeah, absolutely. You probably heard in Europe, we have a lot of compliance, a lot of laws.
Yes, I've heard about that.
So that was slowing us down. And I saw that it was slowing down everybody. And we realized that, the big companies had some solutions, some technology for their operations, but the small and mid-sized organizations had nothing. And we were a mid-sized organization and we were very frustrated. So we said, we can do better. We can create something that takes care of all the admin, but we can also do it in a way that's easy to use, that's intuitive, that actually impacts the employee, and not just the core teams of finance and HR, but actually every manager is like a mini CEO with full visibility, real-time information of what's going on inside the company.
Interesting. And so as you've had an incredible journey as a founder, a very technical founder. And after you got out of Red Booth and you started Factorial and you really started to look at how you could build this global AI-powered platform, tell me about kind of some of the things you experienced with the decisions you made, the platforms you decided to build on, what drove those decisions. And then what I really want to get to, Jordi, is talking about, kind of some of the misconceptions that a lot of founders might carry around platforms like Microsoft, and that would share some of your experiences.
Yeah, no, totally. We got to a scale like tens of millions of dollars doing everything direct. And we realized that if we stretch the spreadsheet, which is something that we always know, it's like, okay, how are things going? Then just, drag it to the right.
Drag right.
And then we're like 10,000 people. And it's like, okay, we technically can do that. The P&L is, looking good. But the overhead of managing 10,000 people, it's just massive, And I think there are some hidden costs. And then we started thinking, okay, what is something that we can leverage, something that we can kind of build together with and scale faster and further. We tried hyperscalers. We were not with Microsoft to begin with.
Yeah.
So we started figuring out with Amazon in that case if we could, build a go-to-market together with. And the short answer is like, no. And like, they had a good cloud product, but they didn't have a B2B distribution network. So we started looking outside. Obviously, eventually we came to the obvious one, which was Microsoft, that had both a great cloud, but also a very, very interesting channel ecosystem. To be honest, it was a learning curve. I think, and I talked to a lot of founders about this, there is such a thing as too early. I think a startup should have their direct motion pretty well tuned before they expect somebody else to help them sell. Yeah. So we had to make sure that we had a very repeatable, scalable, direct sales motion that we could then learn to do together with somebody else.
So I want to talk about that as well, because I think there's some really great learnings in that. Let me back you up a little bit and talk about the journey as you started to work with Microsoft. What were some of the things that you said you learned a lot along the way?
A lot.
Tell me some of the challenges, but tell me maybe some of the things that were much easier than you expected them to be.
So first of all, the ecosystem is massive, and actually Microsoft's team is just a small component of the ecosystem. The partners are the biggest component of the ecosystem. Sure. So we went both to the Microsoft team as well as to the partners. And we realized that the partners really wanted to sell our solution. It was a really good fit with the ecosystem, with Business Central, with productivity, with Office. But they needed kind of like the incentive structure and the blessing of Microsoft, basically, to make sure that what they were building with us was aligned with their strategy, with their goals and incentives. So in our case, the Spanish team of Microsoft served as the early adopter and as a champion of our agreement. We were not on Azure at the time. So it was like a handshake, like a gentleman's agreement, where we said, okay, you help us develop this channel. We commit fully to Microsoft, and then we did a bit of exploration. So it was maybe close to a year of like, okay, we're going to start migrating some parts of the infrastructure. You're going to help us with some introductions. And the thing that was key for us that we realized is we only ask for people to open the door. We don't ask them to do anything for us other than opening the door. And our commitment is we'll smash that door. So once you open it, we'll go full force. So we hired a full dedicated team to the Microsoft ecosystem. So every partner that we started generating traction with, we would hire dedicated founded heads. We would train them in our office, and then we would send them to the partner, and then we would train the team of the partner, and then we would copy paste this model. Spain was a huge success. And then we started going after different geos, first in Europe and then in the rest of the world.
And then as that started to progress, tell me a little bit more about how you saw that scale, how it grew, and then what was it in the way you dealt with Microsoft that helped you, or what would you give advice to others about, ways you could see that growth themselves?
Okay, let me split that in two, because
Perfect.
I think I'm a bit of a nerd, still a programmer and engineer.
That's okay. You're in good company.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah. So one of the things that we realized with partners is that the sales cycle is longer, because you have a dedicated team that then works on acquiring new partners. Then you need to onboard the partners. You need to train them. You need to hire dedicated people. Sure. You need to start building pipeline of end customers. Then you need to close the customers, onboard them, make them successful, create success stories. So that takes longer than going direct.
Yeah.
But the beautiful thing is that this compounds at twice the rate, because then we have a partners team that every single month is closing new partners. And then we have the partners that every single month is closing new customers. And because we're a SaaS, every single month, each customer pays us. Then the other area I wanted to touch on was aligning on roadmaps, strategic initiatives, and incentives. So it's like, how do we get our partners and the employees of Microsoft that are helping us to grow this metric that everybody seems to be aligned on? So once you kind of hear these hints and you apply them, and you apply pressure on these points, and you invest heavily on engineering, things work really well. And the last one was relationships. Once you start learning the key people and how do you navigate the org chart, which is not a matter of a week, this is a longer process, but it's not difficult. With the right champions inside the organization, you can navigate pretty quickly up and down inside the geo, inside the different part of the organization. No? In our case, we're SME. You have enterprises, you have corporate, you have SME, you have product, you have marketing. So we're navigating all of these different lines across the organization with a few champions along the way that help us redirect, or when there is an obstacle.
You hit on something really interesting, and I think that some partners miss this idea of building with us, right? Is very important, and you came to it in a different way, where some partners come to us for that first. You kind of came for the GTM and then learned, if I build with Microsoft, I can accelerate things. And I think that's an important point to hit for partners and builders to kind of understand that momentum and build with us to kind of accelerate their momentum off of ours. It can be a really powerful thing. So I'm glad you called that out. What do you think you would tell a hyperscaler? This startup, let's just say a startup is ready for deeper partnership. What advice do you have based on your learning that you started to get there earlier about, you got to be ready. Like, you've got to be ready to sell direct. Talk more about that.
At the end of the day, the thing that matters is what you're contributing to the world. My learning is, just go solve problems to a lot of people, move very, very extremely fast, like delight the customers, and then run like there is no tomorrow. Today is the last day on earth, and we need to achieve our mission today, and then hopefully tomorrow we have another chance. Once you do that and you kind of build a culture of extreme velocity and execution, then things sort of align. And I would say the last ones that we already touched on is aligning on incentives, aligning on strategic initiatives, building a lot of products together, building brand together, doing something like we're doing right now.
Talk a little bit more about challenges, right? As a founder, I mean, ideally other founders are listening to this and they get inspiration from you. I know they will, but also two things I want to learn about. Challenges you hit that you would tell others were some of your greatest learning. So what's one thing that you say, gosh, along my journey, either in the partnership with Microsoft or just as a founder, this was one of my biggest things, roadblocks I hit that I learned the most, just even through your own personal growth?
So the learnings are very deep and personal. I would say, to achieve anything, you need to rewire how your brain works. I've seen the biggest success when we've put together a bunch of very open-minded people, very curious people. It's a word we use a lot at Factorial, that will listen, but never assume. They will never assume anything. They will challenge every single assumption that they hear about, that they see, and that they even intuitively sometimes come up with. They'll fight the urge to assume that this is the way things are done. What's the other part of the question?
Well, no, I love that. I love that the learning for you is cultural. It's about people.
Yes.
You know, and I love that you made it a positive. It wasn't, hey, I made some really bad hires and here's what I learned. It was along the journey, I learned that you could shape a culture in the way you wanted it to shape as the founder by hiring people that were curious, that were resilient, right? That you're right. Because I mean, being a founder, I imagine there's the highest of highs and the lowest of lows, and they could all be in the same day, right? Yeah, exactly. And so you found people that could kind of create both and stomach the lows as well. The second part was about speed.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I find everyone I talk to, especially today, most founders talk about the need for speed.
Yeah.
But what does that mean? What does that mindset mean? Give me some examples of, okay, the way you wake up in the morning and what you're looking at, how you're triaging your day, and then how you're encouraging your team, times when it hasn't happened as fast as you'd like, and how you correct that behavior. But how do you set the pace?
So look, there is a sentence that I stole from my co-founder, Bernat, which is the long term happens today. So we are what some people will call very tactical. And they mean it in a bad way, but for me, that's a compliment. We're extremely tactical.
Yeah.
So we're always building the long term today. We have a strong daily, weekly, and monthly cadence, more than quarterly and annual. So even at our size, most of our goals are monthly. Yeah. And we do things that take many months, but we make sure to scope them to a month and make sure that people get measured, starting with myself, every single month on our performance towards the long-term vision, but measured in a monthly basis, and obviously at the management level with a weekly check-in. And if we get hit by a bus tomorrow, then we know we did the right thing today. So we're not just dreaming on a potential future.
So before we kind of bring things to a close with a partnership question, I want to give me a little bit more about Jordi and how you think. What are you when you're waking up in the morning? Do you have a ritual? Something you do first thing before you get out of bed?
So breakfast with my family. Okay. And then if I can, I bring my daughter to school.
How many times have you checked email before that happens?
Oh, yeah, a few times.
Okay.
I don't do any of these super healthy things. First thing in the morning, look at the emails, answer to some WhatsApp messages. Try to spend a lot of time in person. We have our entire team going to the office 5 days a week. We always did that except for when it was illegal in Spain. So we're very, very much in favor of in-person relationships and conversations. We travel a lot to visit our partners, to visit our clients, and
you're always on the road.
Relationships.
Every time I'm reaching out to you, you're always on the road.
Yeah, we've seen each other in many, very different parts of the world. Yeah.
And I love that you just came from my home, and I'm closer to your home. Not in your home yet, but we meet here
on the way. Getting closer. Tomorrow to Madrid.
Closer. Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
to meet some of your colleagues.
Yeah. Look, as you think about partnership, and if you were to advise a founder who said, "Hey, I want to partner with Microsoft, give me some advice." What do you think of in terms of what is a well-packaged partnership for someone to come join forces with us? If you were to say, "Gosh, before you go do that, think about these things and having them ready, and you'll be able to go faster with Microsoft." Do you have any of those things that come to mind?
Yeah, I think a big part of my learnings in terms of the culture and the hiring of the talent that we have applies really, really well to partners. Come right away with offers, starting with, I'll work hard, I'll do everything that you allow me to do, I'll treat our shared customers and our partners with extreme respect and love and professionalism. So like bring stuff to the table from day one. I have a strong feeling against entitlement, and I think it's a bit of a problem in the world. It happens in partnerships a lot. People have this entitlement, so like zero entitlement.
I mean, I love that. Well, the only thing I'd kind of caveat to your comments is Microsoft does love the partners, but I do agree with you in the sense of
but we need to be realistic.
But you're right, and coming with entitlement is you're right, the wrong approach. Where I encourage our team to come with that humility as well, right? Is to approach the partner and to come with the mindset of learning that we don't know everything, right? We know how to operate partnerships and get to scale, but we have so much to learn from founders like yourself to just be inspired by you, to learn what you're doing. You're thinking in a totally different way. And so I think when you marry up that humility on both sides, I think we can find some good. All right. So many founders I meet with always have inspiration from different things. Tell me, what is a moment of inspiration or someone who inspires you, and some quote that you kind of guide your team by? Or every founder has it. So I do
have one, and it's a bit cheesy because it's from Bill Gates, actually.
Oh boy, okay. And I didn't know that before we started
but I do use it, and Marcel, who's behind the camera, can attest to that.
So inspiration, where do you gain your inspiration from?
So to be honest, I gain my inspiration from the smallest day-to-day things, like the hard work of the teachers at my daughter's school, or in the small architecture office that I'm working with right now to do a home remodeling. Just seeing people super devoted to their passion, to their craft. As a programmer, I love craft. I love people that have attention to detail, that care about things being done well. This is something that inspires me in all aspects of life. In terms of a quote, and something that also helped me learn a lot and that I use a lot with the team, is this quote that is typically attributed to Bill Gates, which is that most people overestimate what can happen in a year, but underestimate what can happen in a decade. Yeah. We use this all the time. We're turning 10 this year.
Are you really?
So we're using this quote a lot, because when we look back every single year, we feel like we're barely surviving, and Factorial has done well, but it's been quite a ride. There's been many, almost dead moments along the way. But then you look back and you zoom out 10 years and it's like, holy crap. Like, we achieved,
Can you believe it went that fast? To your point, I think it's just getting started. The way the market's exploding, the way you're exploding, your leadership has been fantastic to watch. I always think of it as something that inspires me from the first time we ever met, and just the energy you bring. And it's awesome to see it. And so thanks for being here today. I know you literally just got off a plane from Redmond, came here, ironically, to film this with me, and I really appreciate that. And
thank you so much, Jason.
Your speed and energy is definitely apparent.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jordi. It's good to see you.
Likewise.
Yeah.